Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Growing Up Paranormal, my paranormal vlogs. So I hope you've watched my last two. If you haven't, go ahead and do that now. Also, do you like my backdrop here? It's the skeleton. Guess who it is? It's my co-host, Mr. Bones. My husband was kind enough to make me a looped backdrop for this, and I will be putting it up on my YouTube for free use. Anybody who wants to use it, if they have a thing they use this with, they're welcome to it. Just credit me by putting the link to my channel underneath the description box if you do use it. And I still have to upload it, but it's Mr. Bones. So this is episode 3, and in this paranormal vlog, we discuss things that happened to me while I was growing up. My abilities that I didn't know then, and a lot of spooky things that went on. Can you hear the thunderstorm? Also, I'm going to have a couple more episodes after this. Now, I won't be adding them back to back to back like I did the first 2 episodes, but I wanted to get the ball rolling. So please check back. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, now's the chance. Click that bell for future notifications. And do keep checking back, because sometimes you might not get the notification. I know that I put my second episode up, and people said I don't see it anywhere. So there was no notification for that. So don't always rely on that, but still click the bell. So the topic of discussion for today will be my usual paranormal goings-on when I was a child growing up, as well as into teenager years and adulthood till now. And I'll flip-flop back in time and forward again to all different types of things, but I'll try to keep it on a steady timeline. I need a little water. Okay, so the topic of the discussion today will be more paranormal stuff that happened to me when I was a child. And like I said, I'll try to keep it in a row from when I was a child, like a baby, a child, teenager, adult till now. But I might flip-flop a little bit over the place, so bear with me. But I will let you know that I was about this age zone, because I don't remember the exact ages sometimes. So that's going to happen. So we're going to begin. So start to get comfortable, slip into something cozy, turn down the lights, light some candles, go get some fuzzy slippers, pour yourself a drink, get some snacks, get the cat, get the dog, get in a comfy position, and get ready to get scared. Get ready to be spooked. Okay, everybody. So today, my co-host and I, Mr. Bones, are going to bring you another scary bunch of real events that happened to me growing up paranormal. And I want to thank you for tuning in for episode 3. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to discuss is when in episode 1 and 2, I discussed how in episode 1, I discussed how I heard voices calling my name, and sometimes they'd be sing-song sounding, like magical, And sometimes they'd be female, sometimes they'd be male sounding, and sometimes they would be genderless. They would have, you couldn't tell if it was a male or a female voice. And sometimes they would mimic the voices of my family members, my mother, my father, my sisters. And again, just to recap, I grew up in a big 5-floor house that was built for my parents on Long Island. My parents are both from Italy, and they moved to U.S. many moons ago. They have since passed, and yes, I still talk to them. I'll get to that too. And that's what happened in the first one. I discussed how I used to hear music coming out of anything, like hair dryers, my closet, my pillows, and just all types of sounds, clanking of dishes, people talking, people laughing late at night. So we will, and then on episode 2, I told you about the dolls, how the dolls would move really slow, and how they'd whisper. So in episode 3, I like to touch on some topics. So I got a little book to take notes to remind me, because this way I'm not being sidebarred and distracted, sitting here, you know, because I'm cataloging the things in my head. I'm trying to access my files from all my lifespan. So I just do it spontaneous, but I don't want to like keep going, it's a lot of editing. So I want to just get to the point here. And so I took notes last night for each episode. And I might film 2 episodes tonight and then separately upload them, okay? So let's get started. So in this 3rd episode of Growing Up Paranormal, my paranormal vlogs, I'm going to discuss how in the 5-floor house I had, now I had a little room on the 3rd floor facing the front of the house. Then from time to time we'd all switch rooms as we got older, and then one would move out and then this one would get this one. I loved the little room. It was mine when I was a baby. I always wanted the little room. When I hit a certain age, then me and my one sister, I won't mention their names. I don't know if they want me to, so we'll just use initials. My oldest sister, Jay, will use initials. She had the room next to my little one. And then my 2 middle sisters, N and P, had the room all the way above. But it was always moving around, because at different points, different people have rooms. But I typically wanted just the little room, because I felt safest in that for some reason. I did at some point share a room with my sister P, the one that's 5 years older than me. I'm the youngest. And we used to share the room next to my little room. And so I'd end up going back there and here. I never wanted the room all the way upstairs. It was big, and it was next to my mother's sewing room. Anyway, I'm getting to the point. So what happened was, all the way upstairs in the bigger room on the 5th floor, my sister N and my sister P, because it was a huge room, it was the whole length of the house, they made 2 rooms out of it, and they brought, you know, these little partition things, and it was the 70s, the late 70s, so my sister hung groovy little beads up, and to separate the room. And I remember when it was hot out, my father didn't want it, because we really didn't have central air. It wasn't a big thing, and it was very expensive back in the 70s, and we had a big house. So you just had typical wall units or window units. Now upstairs was a wall unit, down on the main floor was a wall unit. My parents had a window unit, and my other sister had a window unit. But because I was the youngest, they didn't feel I needed an air conditioner in my room, so I'd go upstairs in the summer and sleep on the fold-out couch. and it was between the two rooms. It was the room, one big room, but like right in the center because there was a big fold-out couch. And I was sleeping there one night, and I remember my sister P told me that she saw things floating on my sister N's side. And I remember being like, yeah, well, I didn't see it, but I didn't doubt it with all the crazy stuff. And one day she was, one night I should say, I was sleeping, but I woke up and my sister P was sleeping. My sister N was out with her boyfriend. She was older. She was second oldest, so she can be out late. And I remember that I think she came home and she was passed out, sleeping. She must have been partying or whatever. And I remember being woken up from that, and then she slipped into bed quietly, not to wake anybody up, but I was up, of course. And I remember saying, hey, and she's like, go back to sleep. I guess she didn't want my parents to know that it was like 2 in the morning. She got home. I think she was maybe 17. And so she had her dresser on, let's say this was the couch, and like behind the partition where the beads would loop would be her dresser. But I can see it. So I remember seeing her dresser, and like I didn't think much of it because all of a sudden I saw something floating, and I thought I was seeing things. It was kind of dark, but there was like a light, night lights and lights from the windows because we lived on a corner, and the big street light. It was before they put those energy-saving yellow lights everywhere, so you had a regular beaming lamp everywhere. And I thought I saw, and then I need a drink. I thought I saw her hairbrush just hovering slightly over the dresser where it was. So say here's the dresser, here's her hairbrush, and I saw it going like this, and it was kind of moving. So I thought I was listening, so I'm going to my other sister P like, psst, psst, because her bed was closer, even though it was kind of centered in between my sister's room and my sister's side and her bed and my other sister. And she's like, shut up, leave me alone. Nobody likes the baby sister. So I'm like, well, who's going to see this? And again, I'm going to look crazy. But I remember just watching it hover there for a while, and I figured, that's it. Someone's going to see this, and I'm going to get up. And I mustered the courage, and as I was just getting up, it went boom, and it went down. And my sister Anne got up and said, what are you doing? Are you messing with my stuff? Go to sleep. So she said, go back to bed before you wake up mom and dad and get us all in trouble. And so that was that. So I had to go to bed, and that was the end of that. And I told them we woke up, me being a kid all excited, and I'm telling my mother, and then my father's like, stop that, don't talk about that stuff. Because he was religious, remember, Roman Catholic, once studied to be a priest before he met my mother, so there was none of that in my house. He didn't want you to discuss the supernatural, the paranormal, or any of that, so that was out of the question. The other thing I wanted to discuss is nothing much came of that because nobody believed me, except for my one sister P, who said she thought she saw something floating. They listened to her because she was 5 years older than me. Now, I don't remember what age I was. I want to say I was like maybe 7 or 8. And, my sisters like used to hang out with a lot of friends, a lot of guys. The guys tended to believe me, and the girls would, they would make fun of me. So, but the guys did believe me. So, or at least they were polite enough where the girls were kind of bitchy and like, no, it didn't happen. You're a stupid kid. Shut up. Or, oh, sure, that happened. Or you were just dreaming. That's my fault. You were just dreaming. You didn't see that. So then the second thing that would happen is I would tend to get a lot of, now I don't know if you prefer if I whisper or if I just talk regular, so let's try this. I want you to be able to hear me. So I don't know if they, whatever was in the house, because I believe there was good and there was bad. And I believe to a certain age, the bad entities wanted to get to me, do something to me because they knew that I was aware and I can hear and see into the other dimensions and know they existed. They didn't like that. Or because, they seem to like the younger people for their young blood, the pure blood of youth. So who knows? But I know that the older that I got, the less and less that would happen. So what happened was, whenever I would get sick, and like I said, I didn't know a thing that I didn't know if they're the ones who made me sick, or if because I was always getting high fevers. But then when you're a kid, that's going to happen. You always come down with something. So when that would happen, I would have these, my mother called them delirium, that I was delirious and I was just having a delusion. But I don't think so. It was about bedtime and, I was sick with a fever, and this happened on more than 10 occasions. So I don't know, how would you have the same delusion and delirium little, it didn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to put him down. So what I saw was every time I got a high fever or just a fever, these really obese fat people would be squeezing in my room. Mind you, I had the little room in the house. All the other rooms were nice and spacious to really big. And I picked the little room because I felt safest. It was cozy, and it was warm in the winter, and it was easier to keep cool in the summer, and it was in the front by the, it had like right on the corner. So I had nice view and breezes and everything. And I didn't feel all the way in the back somewhere. So all these fat, really fat, obese people like climbing into my room like this, like they lift their legs up and they're lifting their arms up like this. I remember that. And they're like legs, can't see me do that, but they had their legs like lifting like that and their arms like that. And they were all squeezing in. And their main goal was to try to smother me to death. And I knew that without them saying that. And I don't remember them talking, but they were all coming towards me like that, and they'd look, like, and they'd still more and more. They would just be coming by the dozens, all these fat people rolling in. I don't know. And one by one, they would just be, and you can hear them like trying to squeeze in. And I remember screaming and screaming. My mother would come in and, because she'd be getting ready, taking her makeup off with cold cream in the bath, and she'd come running in with half that cream all over her face. If those fat people weren't scary, that was scary. And she'd be like, an Italian, what, and I'd tell her, she goes, oh, it's your fever, and I'll get you more aspirin, and then blah, blah in Italian, and then she'd walk away. And then she'd come back and she'd take my temperature and give me some water and sit with me and talk. And I'm like, could you come back? Could you leave my nightlight? Well, could you put the big light on? So she would do that. And then she would get some cold water and pat me down and do all that. And then she'd sit with me until I guess I fell asleep. But if I woke up in the middle of the night, wouldn't you know, those fat people would be trying to squeeze through my, doing it again, and I'd have to scream for my mother. And on rare occasions when I got the courage and the strength, I'd get out of bed and run and knock on the bathroom door if she was in there, or knock on her bedroom door, or if she was downstairs watching TV with my father, if it was, they stayed up late on a weekend when my father didn't have to work, then then she'd come and get me. And that's only happened when I was sick, whether I had a fever, stomach virus, but mainly whenever I had some kind of a fever. But I really don't think it was delirium. Those fat people were out to get me. They wanted to smother me to death. And I got this since they were like little demonics. So I don't know what that was about, but I remember that clearly. And it's scary. So after that, I didn't like, I tried to stay away from really, really fat people because they freaked me out. But back in the 70s, it wasn't GMO food, so people didn't get like really big. I mean, I'm sure there was out there, but I didn't see. There was only one or two people like that in my school, and they still weren't that big. But compared to the rest of us, they were. And I was a skinny little kid because I didn't like to eat meat. I couldn't have dairy. And I remember that used to drive my mother crazy. I didn't eat hardly anything without like examining it, and I was always on the go, wanted to play. So I was a little skinny stick. So the thought of these huge fat people coming in my room trying to sit on me and smother me scared me. And the other thing was that the other thing that would happen when I was sick and I had like a fever were these beans. I don't know what they were. Sometimes it was those fat people, and sometimes it was just other people. They would hang over me on the bed, and they would try to put a needle in my eye. They would go close, and I'd see the needle right above my eye. I'm like, get away, get away! And I would scream, and then my mother would come in, and the usual, take my temperature, give me aspirin, put water, pat me down with rubbing alcohol, put my fever down. That was another reoccurring thing. It was always the fat people and the needles. And then at one point it was pillows. A bunch of pillows. Somebody trying to smother me with a bunch of pillows, trying to shove it in my mouth, that was another one that happened every now and then, but the fat people and the needles in my eye happened a lot. Like I'd see that needle coming closer and closer and closer. And it would be like, get that thing away from me. So from this day, whenever we're watching any horror movies or any kind of movies that they show close-ups of the eyes or like anything to do with the eyes, I'm always like, ugh. That's actually the worst part. Like I can see the blood, the guts, but when you're showing me the eye and something coming towards their eye, I don't want to see it because it reminds me of that. Now, I don't know what they were trying to do to me then, but it was definitely freaky. So I'm not sure what was up with that. Okay, so I need a little drink. It's just water. Okay, so let's continue. So the other thing that happened was one time when I was little, again, I must have been between 6, 7, or 8. And it was, not really late at night. It was probably between 8:30, 9 o'clock. And my mother went to her friend's house. And my mother typically was home. She wasn't always out gallivanting at night. But she went to some kind of a jewelry party that one of her friends were having. And where they sell costume jewelry, and they had a lot of those in the late 70s, because this was, I would say, mid to late 70s. And I remember, and it might have been even after The Exorcist was released, because I know a lot of people were extra spooked around that time. I wasn't allowed to see it, so I don't think I really needed to see it. I still didn't believe all the hype. I'm like, it's just a movie. Come over here for a while and I'll show you what scary is. Oh, and by the way, since I lived on Long Island, I was really close to the Amityville house, and I used to go by it a lot, even after they switched the front entrance and the street name and the address numbers, and I didn't get a vibe. It's really beautiful down in Amityville. and that house is nice. So I did get out, and you couldn't really go up to it. I think at some points, sometimes someone was living there, and some points somebody wasn't. But either way, I didn't get a bad vibe. It was very bright and cheery and nice there. Beautiful. It's right on the Sound, Long Island. So, but I mean, I'd have to go in and actually know. So it's probably just residual from that crazy guy that killed everybody that was on drugs. So I really think that's, and then someone went and made a story. But I don't know. I didn't experience, so I can't say if somebody was lying or not without being there myself. But I have no intentions of having to sleep over there. But those houses are pretty nice there. So now my mother, sorry, I sidebarred. I do that. So now my mother was at her friend's house, and she was having the jewelry party thing there. So my mother went there to check out the costume jewelry and all fancy. Sometimes she'd bring me home something. And my father was home doing his paperwork. He'd sit, now we had a formal living room, we had a den downstairs, and then we had the kitchen with then the other spot where the table was and a fireplace, and then right in front of that, it was like an L shape. We had like a little family room with a couch, my father's recliner, and a TV, and sliding glass doors to the little porch to go out in the backyard, and then 2 windows. And then the formal dining room and living room were behind that. But we always hung out in the cozy little family room to watch TV. Nobody went in that formal living room. Or the den. The den we typically sat during the holidays because it had a big fireplace and a bar room. So I'm just trying to give you a visual of the house. I know you're probably like, shut up and get to it. I will. He's telling me to shut up, get to it. Okay, sorry. So now my sisters, N, again I'm using their initials, not their names. She was the second oldest, was home. My sister, the oldest, J, was out with her boyfriend, now her husband, has been her husband from the 70s. But, oh wow, that's scary, that many years. But my sister N was with her then boyfriend, and they were sitting on the couch, and they were sitting together, like over there, and then I was to the right side of the couch with them, and my father was in the recliner, and my sister P was there too, and she was sitting on the couch. There was 4 of us on the couch. My sister P was on one end, my sister's boyfriend T, then my sister N, and then me. So four of us, but I would sit on the floor Indian style when I could sit on the floor Indian style. You know, put your legs like this, and I probably couldn't do that now. Couldn't even get up if I did. So, but my sister, I would like either sit there, but I was little and I was skinny, so I'd take up much space. But sometimes and I believe at this point I moved to the floor, and I was sitting on the floor because I usually play with my dolls while we were watching. And so I don't remember the movie that was on. It was probably a scary movie. I'm pretty sure it was. And my father was on the recliner, and I think that's when we first started getting cable. I don't know if everybody remembers, but you used to have those brown boxes for cable with the long wire, and you had the thing that flipped, and then you had the little dial back and forth, and you had 2 rows of numbers. But really, what did you get? I think we only got like a few channels. I think MTV and HBO. And so I think we were watching a movie on HBO. So this had to be later. I don't think there was MTV. That didn't come out till the 80s. So, but I think it was just HBO and some other thing. Timelines all over the place. So we were watching a movie all together, and I don't remember what it was. And then my mother wasn't home, and my sister J wasn't home. And then all of a sudden, we heard this loud boom, 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 boom. it sounded like the whole top floor, the whole fifth floor of the house just went tumbling down. I mean, that's, or like a giant pillar fell. Not pillow, but pillar. You know, I'm, and I'm not kidding. You can feel it, and you felt like boom. So now, remember, we had a 5 floor house, and then we were on the 3rd floor, and so now it came from all the way up on the 5th floor. You know, where my mother had a sewing room, my sisters had their room, and there was a sun deck. And it definitely was on top of the house. So either that or the roof. And it was so loud. And I'm not exaggerating, it literally sounded like the whole top floor fell in. And so you heard that loud boom, boom, and you can feel it, you know, and like your speakers going boom, boom, and you feel the bass. You felt that. And we were all like, what the? And I was like, ah. And just as you heard that, you heard someone scream, like a woman scream really loud, and then you heard laughter. And I was scared. I jumped on top of my sister. You know, I was little and I was skinny, so I was just like, oh, she was carrying, like, what is that? And my father's, and everybody, so they, you know, got up off the couch, and my father and my sister's boyfriend, he was probably like 17 at the time. They went looking, and my sister N and P were like, what's that? What the? And I was like, because I'm like, now what? I mean, so many crazy things have been happening to me. I'm like, oh, great. Now, but you know, at least this time I was with people and everyone heard it. So now my father, you know, and my sister's boyfriend T went upstairs to check. They went onto the sun deck, peeked up on the roof. We had like a sun deck off of the sewing room. You could open these big sliding glass doors and go out. It was on the roof. It was nice. And then and nothing in the other rooms. So then my father and T walked around the house, and my sisters, you know, they carried me. They told them to just stay in. And they went into the other rooms, and then went downstairs, and then went to the basement and looked all around the house. There was nothing in the house. So now they went outside thinking, I bet it was spaghetti. There was this guy it was a kid, and he was the troublemaking kid. He had flaming red hair and freckles, and he was a real brat. And he was a troublemaker, and he was always in trouble, always doing something in the neighborhood, and we used to call him Eddie Spaghetti. And I remember when I was really little, he was about my sister P's age, so he was a little older than me, or maybe 3 years older than me, probably, something around that. I can't exactly tell you the exact age, but he was older than me, and he was a brat, and he used to get in trouble, and he lived right down the block. And I remember he was always doing something to get everyone in trouble and everyone, for him to get in trouble, he was doing something to everybody, almost all the neighbors, and everyone's always calling his parents, and he was just a nightmare. And I don't think I think it was actually in October, because it wasn't winter, it wasn't that cold yet, but it was a little chilly out. So I believe it was fall time, and I believe it was October. And so people were still outside. So my father figured, it was probably Eddie Spaghetti, that little bastard. So he called him. And so him and my sister's boyfriend T went outside to look. They went all around the house. They would look there was nothing. There was nothing, okay, there was nothing anywhere, not inside, not on the roof, not in the basement, not outside, not completely around the house, nowhere, not even in my neighbors. Everybody was peaceful. So it's like, what the? And it was an upper class neighborhood, and everybody was in their houses, and everything was peaceful. So it's just like, what was going on here? It's the suburbs, and it's peaceful, and we don't know where that came from. So we were all like, what's that? Oh my God, what was that? You know? And then you hear another noise. After like maybe a half an hour, we settled down, and we missed the rest of the movie, but we're just sitting there looking for something else to watch and talking about what that could be. And then we hear another noise, and it sounded like it came from the front steps. So my father runs, my sister's boyfriend, and I'm like, oh, my sister grabbed me, kind of carried me, and my other sister came. Somebody had put wood, like long pieces of wood, really long, like 2x4s or what have you. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that, but they were like this thick and really long. And there was a couple of them just on, we had the front steps, you know, in a little portico. They were like from the door onto the steps, like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 pieces of the wood just laying there. And it made no sense whatsoever. And we're like, where the hell did this come from? And my father was an Italian, and my sister's boyfriend was looking at my sister's. So we don't know. We never solved the mystery. We don't think it was Eddie Spaghetti, because I think my sisters later tried to find out if he was home. When I don't even think his family, I think they went away for the weekend, because this was the weekend. So then when my mother came home, we all, you know, of course we gathered around and told her about this, and then she was like, oh, you must have heard me laughing with my friends. We were having a good time. But she said it in an Italian accent. She had a thick Italian accent. Oh, we were having a good time. You heard me laughing, you know? So she's like, the one night I go out. And we don't know what it was. We never solved it. We tried to figure it out. We don't know where that wood came from either. It was like brand new wood. It looked like somebody just bought it and just dumped it on our front steps. Really long pieces. I would say maybe like 10 to 12 feet pieces of wood, about this thick, and about 3 or 4 pieces of that. And what did they do? Take apart a house? It's almost as if it was like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm still bewildered by the whole thing. To this day, you know what, I should ask spirits. Maybe they'll tell me. I didn't think of that, because I do talk to them, and they tell me things. And I'll get to that in future episodes. So, I'm going to go check my notes. So that's the episode 3 for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, please go check them out. And please like this video, share this video, and comment. Even if it's just to say hi, or tell me if you had any experiences. And also, let me know if you want me to do a live when I can figure it out. I would like to do a live, and I'll give you a heads up and schedule it. Once I do tests and make sure that the live is all working, then I'll schedule one, and then hopefully you can all make it, and then you can ask me questions, and then maybe you could tell me some of your stories. So remember to subscribe if you haven't. Click the bell for future notifications, and keep checking back for new videos, because like I said, you don't always get the notifications. And I hope you enjoyed this. And remember, I'm going to be posting this background with the skeleton that you see that my husband made for me for this, and he's going to be working on new ones. Plus, when I do use other people's that are free, copyright free, all they ask is that you credit them, and I usually put the link to credit them as well. Also, if you're interested, I have my other playlist, DIY crafts, and I do jewelry tutorials, and I do reviews, and of course all my videos of my cats. So I hope you enjoyed episode 3 of Growing Up Paranormal, my paranormal vlogs, and I hope you'll join me for episode 4. Have a good night. Don't let the